Yeah. C-sharp squad with the marketing schemes, making brands pop like soda and dreams. The story brand certified, the real hot shot. Now we step back, call the status forgot. We said bye to the badge, no guilt, no rage. Still cooking up fire, agency stage.
Hey, welcome to the Marketing Live Jam. Again on Thursday afternoon, your perfect midweek show to get real marketing advice in real time that is profitable and real and raw. So, what's been happening, Alex? Hello.
What has been happening? We are having a very different school holidays this time around. We are spending most, if not all, of our school holidays renovating the house, and
Nice.
decluttering the house is probably a better phrase.
Hmm.
I mean, yes, we are doing a big reno, and we have spent the whole week doing demolition work,
Yep.
knocking down things and deassembling 20 years worth of junk. Um,
Wow.
so we've definitely made a start.
Yeah.
And we've got one full skip of 15 cubic liter skip just left out, sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah, we filled it up, and then the truck came and picked it up on a couple of days ago, and I think we probably need 2 more of these runs.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Would you consider anyone in your family like what are they called, hoarders? They just accumulate
Oh,
stuff.
I probably wouldn't
Oh,
go there because
okay,
I
you're not allowed to
run
say
the
that.
risk of offending a lot of people.
Yeah. I would describe myself as a digital hoarder because, I download every PDF under the sun, but
Hmm.
it just sits somewhere on a drive.
Yeah, man. I'm a bit of an extremist when it comes to minimalism.
Yeah.
To be honest, even though I still have a lot of stuff, but I just can't help myself just to declutter as much as possible,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
drives my wife's crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, what is your go-to advice for decluttering your mind? Because especially I find in the marketing space, we are bombarded with news messages, YouTube videos, thumbnails, and all that catchy stuff. How do you protect your mind from not being, a thought hoarder, or bad thought
Well,
hoarder?
um, well, I'll tell you what I stumbled upon this morning. Well, not really stumbled upon, but so I got up early in the morning, went to the gym, and I forgot to bring my headphones.
Yeah.
And for probably about 10 minutes, I thought, oh, this is gonna be the worst workout session ever
Yeah.
because I've literally got nothing to listen to, no input,
No
and
beats.
it works out. Oh man, but I actually spent hour and a half in the gym this morning. Like usually
Well,
I only do 45 minutes or so.
yeah.
And it was like the best thing because you just like you are forced to just not have any
Mm.
input.
Yeah.
Like you're not like thinking of the YouTube and the podcast that you should be listening to and all that sort of stuff. And that was
Yeah.
actually very liberating,
Yeah.
very very liberating. So I'm a huge fan of depriving yourself from the necessity, like fasting, basically, right?
Mm.
In
Yeah.
church style. I remember during COVID, I I I drove to a park and brought my laptop there to work,
Mm.
intentionally without the charger,
Yeah.
and I basically had to force myself to go, hey, get it done,
Mm.
otherwise it's gonna run out of juice.
Yeah.
And also I earlier, like, yeah, probably before COVID, I would drive all the way to the city, park at a 1 hour spot,
Yeah.
and then go to a cafe and just smash out the work, knowing that if I don't come back in time,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get an $85 ticket,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, yeah, you
yeah, so
self-penalize yourself for
look,
not
you
being
just
productive.
exactly. So like, I think with the decluttering thing, you just have to, be in an environment, or make yourself in an environment where you're depriving yourself from,
Yeah.
the
Over
the what do you
centralization.
call it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The glut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, yeah. It just blows my mind on how much content we're consuming. Like not just
man.
content, but just like information that we are exposed to,
Oh yeah,
and
100%. Well,
and how. Yeah.
I would probably say that we have a obesity, like we have a information obesity issue right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with us knowledge worker, it's just never enough,
Yeah.
and it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing
Yeah.
for our soul.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, as we
gluttony,
often say, we're part of the problem, but
exactly.
we try to bring a bit of hope in all that mess.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. Well, we want to produce the content that are actually useful for people,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not only to try and hack the algorithm.
Yeah. And content obviously is super helpful. It's a mechanism or a means to communicate with people at scale. So it's certainly very helpful, but there's just a lot of it. And for people to filter out what's important and what's not, they usually get into just the brain vortex and just scroll through the social media world, and then they end up consuming hours and hours of non-helpful content.
Exactly, and yeah, it's this whole obesity thing. You know, I can't remember what videos I watched yesterday, and the day before, and the day
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
You know, are they really edifying for my soul? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that brings me to our topic for today. Bit from a personal context. I know we're both in the church world, and we deal with a lot of clients from a either non-for-profit or faith-based organization background. Churches and Christian non-for-profits, etc. And if you're watching this and you've been in the church world, you would notice that most churches are trying to find a way to get the contact information from the visitors, the congregation, the membership base. And different churches use different means. Some of them just say, hey, you've been here for 4 weeks, it's time to become an official member. And that's one way to do it. Or other people try to kind of lurk them into signing up for be the giveaway or a bonus or free coffee or whatever it is. And I understand there is a lot of benefit of knowing your numbers and knowing how many people you have, the attendance, and kind of get some metrics around church health as much as metric can indicate health. I also understand that it's not everything to have everyone on your database, but especially from a marketing context, I think it's really important to have an intentional strategy on how do we capture people's information, how do we nurture the people that we have and that are within our circle of influence. And I was really keen to just jam on some ideas or think through what is something that churches or non-for-profits can do, because it's a little bit different to a commercial situation where you're trying to sell something. You are probably selling more a community or a common goal, and especially for those that are not part of your church or your organization yet. How do you get those people to buy into giving you contact information or being on the database? And so I thought it'd be good to kind of get your thoughts or try to find some ideas.
Yeah. Well, look, I think. So what's the problem that you're trying to solve, or what it is that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So from my church context, for example, we have like a connect card, and you can fill in your details, and then you become part of the database. There are typically, and a lot of churches have that, there are two or three main reasons why someone would sign up on that card. One is because they want to be involved and be in the know of what's happening. Like they want to know from the organization, hey, we have an event in 2 weeks, etc. Or they want to be part of a smaller connect group or community where they regularly make friends, etc. Sometimes there are welcome to church parties and just more event-based stuff. But I believe there are a lot of people, they come to an event or they come to a service or the Sunday experience, and they try to be no strings attached. They don't want to be part of the database. They don't want to be a member. They don't want to be part of a connect group. They just want to, come and watch. And I believe if we're not intentional about those people, then, or at least do the very best that we can to kind of integrate them in and nurture them, then we probably lose a lot of them. And most of it probably happens in person. Like, I'm not denying this has a huge part to, be intentional in person. But what can we do from a digital aspect to help those people link into your ecosystem?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? So, well, we just have to go back to our good old, what do they want? What floats the boat and what doesn't float the boat, right? So, if you're thinking about, well, let's just use a generic term, a Sunday churchgoer, right?
Yeah.
Someone who wouldn't mind coming to a service at 10 a.m. in the morning, sing some songs, listen to a really inspiring sermon. And they don't like, they're probably, a lot of them are introverts. They don't like small talks, they don't like shaking hands, they don't like big hugs, they don't like talking to people,
they don't want to open the phone straight away.
Yeah, like when you have during the service, when you go, hey, talk to the guy next to you and tell them about your weekend and stuff like that, that's probably the worst moment for them in church. So I'm assuming those would be the kind of people that we're trying to reach out, right? Because obviously, as church people, we believe that we have the best gift that a human being can ever possess, and we want as many people to get plugged in church, at least be in the know of church instead of just coming in and out on a Sunday. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. One thing that I noticed is that a lot of church communication sounds like the guest is doing the church a favor by signing up. And it's like, we want to help you, and we want to be on the journey with you, and we want to let you know what's happening. And that's why I find it really interesting to think about, well, what do they actually want? And actually, I asked my wife yesterday, and she said these people just want to come to church with no strings attached.
Absolutely.
They don't want to have any level of commitment, or they don't want to feel like there's any pressure whatsoever. And I get that, but right. I'm also like, I don't like it.
Well, you don't like it, but that's what they want. I mean, I think your wife is actually really wise on that, right?
I often ask her for executive
decisions. We need to get to the bottom of this, because if you go, hey, give us your email address, and then I'll give us a phone number, we're gonna call you, and then we're gonna get you plugged in, we're gonna pray for you and stuff like that. That doesn't really, is not what they want, right? It doesn't mean that they don't love God or they don't love Jesus, or they're against our faith and whatnot. It's just not their style of doing church, right? They want to be there, soak it in, receive the information or receive the message, and just be like, so like I totally respect that, and I tend to get into that because my professional life and family life is so vibrant, and when it comes to Sunday, I just want to and actually I do that in gym as well. I hate going to classes because like I just want to be myself, and I don't want to look at anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to do my thing and go, right? So same goes to my sort of church life as well. I just want to be there anyway. So I think, so what's definitely not going to work, I reckon, is, fill in the card and then we're going to get in touch and all that stuff, right? I would probably say that these people still want the spiritual input. Without, and in more of a contemplative kind of way, right? So they want, let's just say this, right? If you've been coming to our church for more than 3 months and you like being here, what we want you to do is to fill out this card. We're going to give you 5 boxes to tick in terms of where you're at in your spiritual journey. And maybe a little bit of an open box for you to tell us whatever that you want to tell us. And then based on what you tell us, we are going to personally select a book, a Christian book,
Mm.
and then we're gonna mail it to you. No
Yeah.
strings attached.
Yeah.
Right? We're not gonna try and call you or whatever, right? But yeah, we're just gonna, this is a gesture of meeting where you're at, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because these people, yeah, go on.
So I like the idea, but this would only work for people that have been there for, have attended for a while, and which indicates that they're somewhat interested in, let's just say church talk or
Yeah.
Christian talk.
Mm.
For any guest, for any visitor, for anyone that has been dragged by a friend or a partner, and is not a Christian and is not in the church world, this is probably a massive turnoff.
True.
Because it's like, hey, I'm giving you my email address, I'm giving you my personal faith, where I'm at in my faith journey.
Yeah.
And I'm on some database. So I totally get this for the for people that have been hanging around for a while, and that would be a good way to incentivize them to actually put the details down so that church administration works a bit more accurately. But I'm wondering about these people that come in once or twice and then we never see them again.
So you're talking about like people who have been dragged along by their friends and family, and mostly are non-Christians or people who are sitting on the fence.
Well, they're curious enough about Christianity or faith to come to a church service, but we don't know if they've attended for a while. We don't know how interested they are. We don't really know the reason.
Well, okay, so I think what you don't want to send them is anything to do with any churchy stuff, right? Like we're not going to send you, like if we're sending a Bible or the New Testament or stuff like that. That's just too cheesy, right?
Yeah.
I think to think creatively, and it really needs to be a more defined target audience, right? Because like if your church, and it really depends on the identity or what they call the DNA of the church, like what they're really good at reaching. Like some churches, they're in the low socioeconomic areas where people are struggling to make a living or even have 3 meals a day, so doing your soup kitchen and your free meals and whatnot works tremendously. Or something to do with cost of living, right? Like so that like so if your church happens to and that's probably something that churches don't do really well, or sometimes I feel that they don't have the courage to double down in niching, because we're supposed to be everything to everyone. We love everybody, so whatever.
Very inclusive.
Like, it's from a faith point of view, I don't disagree at all, right? But if you're trying to have the most impact in a certain local area, especially your local church, I think really churches really need to double down in understanding who they're actually serving, or what kind of target audience that they would serve really, really well, right? And then the rest is cream on top, essentially. I'll give you a couple of examples. So we're looking to move on to a new church at the moment, and we're navigating a few churches and whatnot, right? There's one particular church which is about 20-25 minutes away from where we are, where they have an exceptional kids program. You're talking about 500 kids turning up on a Friday night for youth group. It's crazy. Like they pick up the whole auditorium. Like this church happens to be a quote unquote, it's not a mega church like a Hillsong, but is big, right? Thousands of people coming through and all that sort of stuff. But they have, like, you can see it. They have intentionally over the years invested so much time, energy, building, effort into the kids program. And they're situated in a suburban area where it's just young families everywhere. Right. And they're relatively well-off young families as well in that particular area. And I think it's just really, really smart. And I can't tell you how many friends that we've had,
Mm.
have moved to that church purely because their kids are hitting a certain age where they want a more stabilized
Yeah,
youth group or
yeah,
support, right?
yeah,
So for me, it's so smart, right? You take care of the kids, and everybody's going to tag along,
yeah.
right? Is
Kids are
it a
happy,
perfect
then parents
church?
are fine. Yeah,
Exactly. Is this a perfect church? Is this absolutely spot on and everything? Absolutely not, right? But they've done the kids program so well, and that basically becomes the irresistible offer.
yeah,
Where for a lot of churches, the kids program is probably a little bit of an afterthought, which is not
yes.
wrong, right? But it really depends on where you want to drive it, right?
Mm.
So I would probably say, really analyze who you serve best
Yeah,
and what's low hanging fruit in your area. Like again, if you're low socioeconomic,
mm.
and creating something that addresses either hunger or shelter or cost of
Yeah,
living
yeah,
would be really, really smart, right? And whereas if you're saturated with young families or kids that are going to high school and whatnot, like you create a stellar kids program,
yeah.
that's basically your lead magnet.
Mm. Yeah, and then you can have kids events all the time.
Yeah. Well, let's think about your church, right?
Mm.
What do you like if you could put a church marketer hat on for your particular church?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, the cost of living is an interesting one because we live in a reasonably affluent area, like southern part of Sydney, and a lot of people are affluent in our church, or a lot of people want to be as well. And I'm wondering whether, like, I would have loved to get some practical financial education from my church, not just give and be generous and you should tithe, but
Mhm.
how to budget, how to put money aside, how to invest, and like things like that, like every day, um you know deal with your money 101 type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
um I think this would hit home for a lot of people, but the challenge that I see is, are people willing to admit that they are struggling in financial stuff? And if not, then we might have to get the angle right, so that they're not revealing that they're struggling, but that they want to be wise, or I don't know. But
Yeah.
cost of, like,
So,
how to manage your money, I think would be a very interesting one.
so this is a little bit off topic, right? So in America, there's a guy called Dave Ramsey. He's got
Yeah,
this huge program called Financial Peace,
yeah,
and they do it around churches because it's basically designed in the church context,
yeah,
like stewardship, how to invest your money. Like it's very like it's. I would probably say that kind of stuff is a perfect fit for
yeah,
what you're describing, right? It's almost like the financial version of the Alpha course when you
yeah,
think about
mm,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, something like that would like if you think that in your area most people are worried about money, or even when you're living in a I would probably say a middle class area or
yeah,
affluent, quote unquote. You're in the Shire, so a lot of people are middle class,
yeah,
two income, fancy cars, fancy houses, and all that sort of stuff. But they may not necessarily be financially sound.
yeah,
In they could be racking up a lot of debt
mm,
and credit cards and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
They could be just still living paycheck, like they live a fancy life, but they're still living
yeah,
paycheck to paycheck,
yeah,
right?
just stressed.
So and exactly, and the interest rate goes up 0.5%. They're stressing already, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like you could experiment honing into those messaging,
mm,
and go, hey, come to our church. I know church is probably a weird place to talk about money and finance,
yeah,
but if you can find a way to spin it and go, hey, we've got a program that is based on ancient wisdom
mm,
that has proven to work for millions and millions and millions of people. We're going to teach you how to manage money the right way,
yeah,
and then you sort of go from there.
mm. Yeah, like this sounds like a lot of work, and I
Yeah, yeah,
understand, like your church with that massive kids program. Obviously, that requires a lot of thought, and also staff and volunteers that bring this to life.
Mm.
Um, I'm wondering if there's something to implement that is like quick to do. to experiment.
Mm.
Like we have a lot of connect
Yeah.
groups, and sometimes they are themed around, you know, a particular topic, or they're like based on life stage. But a lot of people that, you know, dabble into church, they're not ready to meet at somebody's home and, you know, be intimate with, you know, like in a group with 10, 12 people and share about the life story.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, churches have been trying to figure it out for millennia, so
For
it's
centuries. Yeah.
we won't find a perfect answer, but
Yeah. I think again it is about doing a deep dive in the target audience. Like, you know, in
yeah,
the story brand world, we talk about who's the hero of the story, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, because there's so many ways we could spin it, but it really depends on the DNA of the church. Like some
yeah,
churches are really, they want to, they're really intentional about becoming multicultural, right?
yeah,
And then you can start, you know, you can start creating offer around that.
yeah,
Some churches are, yeah, as you said, you know, they want to minister to the rich people or minister to the affluent,
yeah,
and then you just need to create messaging around that.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I would probably say once they're in the door, like, you know,
Yeah.
I thought the original question was, you know, if it's for people who are just like either church shopping a little bit, or, you know,
Yeah.
they just come to church on, you know, every 2 Sundays or whatever, and sit through a service and they enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
You know, probably one of the better ways for you to get the details would be, you know, I'm gonna send you a personalized gift, right?
Yeah.
So not a coffee voucher or whatever, right? Something a
Yeah.
little bit more thoughtful, based on where you're at in your faith journey, and we
Yeah.
want to do it in a way where there's no strings attached.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a really good idea for people that, you know, have come for a little while, because otherwise it's quite intrusive in terms of, you know, details that we're getting. But yeah, no, I'm going to take it to the board, see what they think.
Yeah, but still, sometimes, look, I think from a faith point of view, sometimes things are not scalable, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's such a personal thing, and not everyone's called to be a Billy Graham or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even if you just like, and if you want to appeal to absolutely everyone, you know, maybe be more intentional about, we want to be a church where we're actively praying for our community. You know, let's just say 30 kilometers around the radius, right? Well, wherever you're at, you know, we want to be actively reaching out to people who are either struggling in life or need prayer.
Yeah.
And we want to be actively praying for people, right? Then your next move could be a letterbox drop or something, or or a free hug every Friday, or a free hug or free prayer every Friday at the mall or something, right? And you sort of want to stand your ground and be consistent around that stuff.
Yeah. I as a summary, I really resonated with finding what your, like, on one, what your congregation or your target audience is struggling with, and where do you think you have the most natural experience or know-how to help them, and then create something around that. So find the pain and the skill that match to solve the problem, and then create something around it.
Absolutely. Like, I know churches, they are pretty underwhelming on the service, but they would go to the council regularly and ask, what problems can we solve for this postcode, as a church, as a group of people, and you know, volunteers and whatnot, right? And to me, that's beautiful, you know. I think if we're active in solving people's tangible problems, communities' real problems, and we want the council to look at this group of people, you know, call XYZ Church as, they're a bunch of volunteers who are actively coming to us every 3 months, asking for things to do or value to be added in our council. You know. Yeah, it's not sexy, but you know, I think this would be the kind of thing that is pleasing in God's eyes.
Yeah, well, church was never meant to be sexy.
Exactly.
So yeah, some good thoughts in there.
Yeah. Well, I thought I would end our conversation with one more example. This
Yeah.
is not church, but it is a faith-based charity that we've been doing business with for years and years and years. They're called Southern Cross Kids Camps. Um, what they do is actually amazing. They basically they hold these camps to give kids who are neglected and who are experiencing or have experienced abuse and neglect 1 week of happy memory, and sometimes that 1 week would change the trajectory of the entire life. And
Yeah.
we've seen this many times because they've been doing this for many years, and they've run hundreds of camps and so on and so forth. The last CEO, so the was a bit of a visionary,
Yeah.
and he had a lot of courage to experiment with a lot of things, and he also had the courage to do it outside of the context of the stereotypical Christian acts, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So one of the campaigns, when I still remember when they first came to us, and